Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Living on Music. I'm Steve Hauk, and oh my gosh, and I've had maybe that expression a few dozen times with the people that I've had a chance to interview and talk to and get to know a little bit on Living on Music. But this gentleman that is going to join us today on Living on Music is really has no equality with almost anybody in the history of session musicians, and also his incredible beginnings to some of the and helps to some of the early rock bands that still stand the test of time. It is Jeff Skunk Baxter, and Jeff Skunk Baxter continues to play, has a solo album called Speed of Heat out now, and he continues to play, but also, as many of us know, was instrumental as a co-founder of helping start Steely Dan, with Donald Fagen and Walter Becker and the rest of the band. And amazing, we talk about that. We also talk about his beginnings with the Doobie Brothers, bringing in Michael McDonald once Tom Johnston was a little bit ill, very ill actually at the moment when they needed a quick change for a singer. And that was Jeff Skunk Baxter's role, and boy, that didn't stop his role in music. His incredible session musicians, or session times that he's had with incredible musicians. We're talking about Glenn Campbell, Ringo Starr, Dolly Parton, Tom Rush, Al Cooper, Judy Collins, Joe Cocker, Elton John, John Mellencamp. I mean, Barbara Streisand, Donna Summer, Cher, Joni Mitchell on her Hissing of Summer Lawns album. I mean, he contributed so amazingly, also produced records, did television and movie composing, and just had some incredible runs. And we cover it all on this really incredible edition of Living on Music. So without further ado, let's get right to it. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a very warm Living on Music welcome to Jeff Skunk Baxter. Jeff Skunk Baxter, welcome to Living on Music, man.
Well, thank you for your hospitality.
Oh, I'm telling you, my friend, as a 50-plus year rock and roll fan, a 30-year music journalist, 40 years in television, to be able to talk to you, it could go on for hours, and we'll take our time. But boy, is it a luxury and an honor to have you on, Jeff. Thanks so much for taking your time for me.
My pleasure. Thank you.
I really am excited, and I'll tell you why on a number of occasions as we go along. On Living on Music, we talk about past, present, and future. What I like to hit right now is your present, and a little back in a couple of years. How did Jeff Skunk Baxter do with the pandemic? How did a guy like you, who continues to play, continues to I know your new record was about to come out, and you had an induction. How did you deal with the last 3 years or so?
Well, I guess it's like the U.S. Marines say, improvise, adapt, persevere.
Right.
And so actually I took advantage of it because it gave me the opportunity to do some shedding that I hadn't been able to do.
Really?
An opportunity to finish up the solo project.
Oh.
So which allowed myself and my music partner, CJ Vanston,
yes,
to be able to spend the time so as that last 100 yards, I felt terrible for the world in general.
Yes.
But for me, it actually worked out very well. Plus, in my day job, I could get down to LA Air Force Base and I could work and do what I had to do. I didn't have to get on an airplane.
Right.
Then commute to DC. So it worked out rather well.
Talk a little bit about that for a second, and then we'll hit later about how you got into the entire thing with the defense and everything. What was your day job lately and with this occasion?
I can't get into too much detail.
Right. Okay.
But it's been dealing with unconventional warfare, counterterrorism, which is the flavor of, it's not the flavor of the month, it's the flavor of the next decade.
Right.
And wargaming, space warfare, things like that.
Well, thank you for indulging me with that, because I appreciate it, and we'll talk a little bit more how you got into that back in the day. 2020, Jeff, inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a member of the Doobie Brothers. Did that feel enriching and fulfilling to you?
Absolutely. I mean, anytime your peers compliment you in a sense and recognize you for hopefully some contribution,
right,
and your skills, it's heartwarming is probably the wrong word, but it really is. It makes you feel, number one, that whatever you've decided to do and pursue in your life was worthwhile.
Yes.
It makes you feel vindicated is the wrong word, but it makes you feel that whatever it is that you've chosen to do, that maybe other folks appreciate it, and that you've accomplished something.
Oh, yes. And absolutely, Jeff. And again, building myself up for the show with you, throwing it out to the Living on Music Nation, the response, Jeff, just so you know, was astronomical about you. And I'll throw some questions from some people that I have in my Living on Music Nation a little later, but boy, the reputation is spectacular. And we'll talk about the Doobies and all that in a moment. Speed of Heat, okay, had to be a wonderful ride for you. Your debut solo album, correct?
That's correct.
Out of this amazing career. What was the impetus behind Speed of Heat, and where did the music come from? And then, of course, we'll talk about some of those guys that you had on it with you, all your old pals and things like that. But how did Speed of Heat come to bear?
Well, it's sort of the germination of it was some years ago, 13, 14 years ago. I started going to Chicago to do jingles. A number of the jingle houses there had asked me to come in and as a studio musician.
Wow.
And on one of the sessions, I had met a gentleman named C.J. Vanston.
Okay.
Brilliant keyboard player.
Totally.
And we had actually done a session together where I was sleeping on the couch at the studio because there was no sense in, we were starting at 7 a.m. and we were working until 2, 3 in the morning.
Oof.
But that's okay. You're cranking them out, you know?
Yeah.
And one morning about 7 a.m., the producer came in a little bit baked and said, okay, are you guys ready? I said, yeah, I guess so. And Mr. Vanston was the keyboard player on the session.
Wow.
And the producer handed out the music, which consisted of a time signature, a key signature, the title Hyatt, which I assumed was for Hyatt Hotels,
right,
and 64 bars with no music.
Oh.
So it was when the producer said, "Are you ready?" I looked at CJ. I'd never met him, but he said, "Yeah, because if you're a studio guy, doesn't make any difference.
Right.
Who needs music? Whatever. Give me the click. I know the key. I know the tempo. Roll tape."
Right.
And we improvised on the fly and wrote the jingle as we recorded it.
Oh.
The client liked it. Everybody was happy. And afterwards, I said to CJ, you know, that's pretty amazing that we could compose on the fly. If I ever do a solo project, I would love to do it with you.
Oh.
And he moved to Los Angeles, became a very successful first call studio composer, player. And we just started working on the project together when both of us had the time.
Oh.
And I don't know, I guess it's kind of like when you got enough pennies in the jar, you got to roll them up, right?
Right, right.
And so we realized that we had a lot of music, a lot of recorded performances,
Sure.
and maybe we should do something with this. So I went out and got a record deal, and away we went.
Oh, where did the songs come from, Jeff?
Many of the songs came from myself and CJ writing together.
Perfect.
And then I thought we'd have some fun. I remember when we first started going out on tour, when people said, well, you're a cover band, right? You're going to be all Steely Dan. No. If you want a cover band, hire a cover band.
Right.
But there are iterations, interpretations, if you will, of some Steely Dan tunes on the record that are very different than the originals, but a song,
Right.
good song is a good song.
Yes.
And the other tunes were co-written with myself, CJ, and the artists that we worked with, Johnny Lang and Clint Black, Mike McDonald, Rick Livingston.
Right.
So it was really a labor of, it was almost like a miniature Brill building where we were writing material just for the sake of doing it. And the only criterion for my friends was, if you want to work on the album, they all volunteered. For instance, when Michael said, hey, if you want me to do something on the record, I'd love to. I said, okay. Here's the deal, though. Whatever it is that we do, you write with two things. You write with myself and CJ, and it's something that you've never done.
All right.
In other words, out of your wheelhouse.
Right.
Like the Clint Black cut is really not a country cut.
Right. No.
And the Michael McDonald thing, I think, is one of the finest performances he's ever done, but you really can't pigeonhole that piece of music. Johnny Lang, I mean, there's a little bit of blues and there's a lot of real hardcore rock and roll. So it was, first of all, it's what you do for your friends. Right. Said, listen, if it sucks, if we screw the pooch on this, you can blame it on me. If it's successful, you're a genius. So it worked out very well. And that's kind of how the composition work came about.
Oh, I love that. And you brought in the buddy from the Doobies back in the day, Michael. I mean, that's wonderful. And God, Clint, that had to feel, I mean, with your incredible, resume, your incredible overview of your career, it must have felt really kind of neat to do your own thing.
Yeah, it's something that I thought about for a long time, but years ago, I was a little bit reticent to do a solo project because to me, one more solo project from one more musician that's left one more successful band.
Right.
I thought, I don't want to be trite. I just, besides, I got tons of studio work on producing records when the time is right.
Right.
And I think after meeting CJ, everything seemed to sort of fall into place.
congratulations, man.
Thank you.
Because of your history, this is just it's just a wonderful continued part of Jeff Skunk Baxter. We're going to talk a little bit when we wrap up in a little while about your touring, the Birchmere, of course, which I know you know, and that's right here, obviously, right near me, and I'm very close with them, and was very close with Gary Olsey, who we just lost, the owner. I
love that place.
Yeah, and I hope to be there for you, but let's go back on a little bit of a whirling dervish to your past, because there are some, again, as I said pre-show, I love a couple of the commonalities that you and I have, or at least close ones, and that was completely unexpected when I started to look back in your life. But you're born in Washington, D.C., which I'm 15 miles from it right now, in Burke, Virginia, and know it well. Lived here about 30 years, worked in television, and you spent your formative years, though, in Mexico. How did that go from Washington, D.C. to Mexico?
Well, did you ever see Mad Men?
Yes.
That was my dad. Without the issues.
Wow.
He was senior executive vice president of the world's largest advertising agency.
Oh.
J. Walter Thompson.
Right.
And they had asked him to take over all of Latin America. South America, Central America, Mexico, all of that.
Right.
And so we moved to Mexico City.
And how was that as a young man, as a young boy?
Hard to beat. Because at the time, Mexico, and I still have a huge place in my heart for Mexico.
Great.
Tengo un gran esquina en mi corazón por la tierra mexicana. I mean,
muy bien.
It's so much a part of my being. And at the time, there was very little violence. It was a beautiful place to grow up in. And the music scene was fantastic because it was very eclectic. I mean, it was everything from German oompa bands to mariachi to opera there were so many, such diverse diasporas of different people that there was all kinds of music. And the Mexican rock and roll scene was fabulous because the musicians were great. Great drummers, great players. Abraham Laboriel and I had a surf band together. He was 13. I mean, he was 12 and I was 11. Yeah. And like I said, the Mexican bands were just killer. Most of what they did was American covers.
Right.
But they were brilliant musicians. And a couple of those guys, there was a band called Los Hooligans that I had the good fortune to meet. And the lead guitar player from the band, Johnny Ortega, was this amazing guitar player. It was the first time I'd ever heard anybody put light strings on a guitar, plug it into a tune reverb, and turn everything up to 10.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I think I like that.
Oh, that's fabulous.
That's what I want to do. Excuse me. And they were very kind to let me play with them.
I bet.
So they, in a sense, mentored me.
Well, yes, that's what I was going to ask. It sounds like that was a real beginning to what happened with with your life. Your first band was at age 11, right? About 11.
Yeah, the Tarantulas. Yeah,
the Tarantulas
with Abraham. But we were out playing shows, and I was sitting in with different bands and getting a reputation as a guitar player when I was really a young kid.
Well, and you ended up in Jeff in the early 60s. You went and graduated from Taft, and that's where we were sitting with the auditorium behind me. And I grew up in Wilton, Connecticut, which was probably 20 miles south. So that's our first minor commonality there. And you played drums in King Thunder and the Lightning Bolts. So you played drums.
Yeah,
Was it a cross section of different instruments for Jeff Baxter at that time in his life?
Well, there was piano. I studied classical piano.
Right.
And somehow or other, I ended up playing drums for a couple of those rock and roll bands. I don't know how it happened, but again, you just sort of shed, you know. I'm trying to think of how what would be the word, the naissance of that.
Right.
came about. But I remember sitting down to a set of drums and just playing.
Oh,
I
wow.
mean, I'm not a great drummer. I keep time.
Right.
And I remember one night at the China Club, our drummer didn't show up, and okay, time to play drums.
Oh
That's
my.
what we do, But the King Thunder and the Lightning Bolts was hilarious. It was a prep school band,
Right.
and after that, at Taft, in the stage behind you, in my senior year, we had a band that we'd put together, students in the school, a really good band actually, and we performed the school song as a rock and roll tune.
Oh God.
And I got a week's detention for that. Although Mr. Cunningham, who's the dean of students, later said that was awesome.
Oh, I bet.
I loved it.
Oh.
The dean of faculty hated my guts, but hey, that's what I loved about Taft, is there were as many creative people as there were hardcore.
Oh, fabulous. Well, that's wonderful. Where in this was it, in this general vicinity? Because I know you were, when you're a high school student, you worked at Manny's in Manhattan, and you met.
Well, actually, I worked at Jimmy's.
Okay.
The Manny's connection was Henry Goldrick, who was the sort of guru of Manny's, took a liking to me. And because I was living in Mexico City and commuting to Connecticut to go to school, there were many occasions where I wouldn't go back for the short vacations.
Right.
I'd stay in New York, and Henry looked after me.
Oh.
And so between working in the music stores, working at Jimmy's and at Dan Armstrong's, playing clubs at night, and then when we were at Taft in our senior year, I'd gotten in trouble for a liaison with a young lady from a girls' boarding school. And the dean of faculty said, there are going to be no more, your band's not going to play anymore at the school dances. So we said, okay. So the first dance that they had where we didn't play, nobody showed up.
Oh.
So afterward, they went, okay. And without getting into too much detail, there was a group called the Head Waiters, which we were the folks that, took care of the dining room and right. all of that. And they put us all in one group because we were all the screw-ups. And they put us all in one group so they keep an eye on us. And the other dean of students, Donald Oscarson, this is a way, he could keep an eye on us. And of course, we were always in detention and had to stay behind for vacations and stuff. So we would always hang out with Donald Oscarson.
Right.
And one day, he got a call from Ethel Walker, one of the girls' schools, saying that they wanted our band to play at one of their dances. And so next thing we knew, we were playing at Emma Willard and Ethel Walker and Dobbs Ferry, and Oscarson was booking the band for 5%, which we thought was fabulous. So not only could he keep an eye on us, but he was managing the band.
Oh,
and so we did a lot of shows.
Right.
Sorry, I'm getting over a little bit of a cold.
It's okay.
It was just a strange confluence.
Oh. And did you meet Jimi Hendrix in one of those stores?
I met him, Jimmy James.
Right.
I met him at Jimmy's music shop.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that had to be a really interesting experience too.
Well, he was I didn't know him at the time.
Right.
He was playing with a band called Jimmy James and the Blues. And we had a chance to, I got Doc 3 weeks pay for trading him a really nice guitar for a not so nice guitar. That's okay. Fine. I was making enough money playing clubs at night. Didn't make any difference.
Right.
But he was a very fine man. He was quiet, introspective, thoughtful, kind, besides being a tremendous talent. And we didn't see a lot of each other, but we did manage to get together on occasion. And it's one of those things where sometimes you meet people, you don't see them for years.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get back together with them, it's like there was no time passed between you.
Oh,
It's a very special guy.
oh, I love that. That was a wonderful meetup early. The guitar has been your mainstay, as well as all the other things you've done in your life. That guitar is where Jeff Skunk Baxter is known so well. Did it kick in around then, earlier and then? Was that part of the instrumental development? And because then it became Ultimate Spinach and you started kicking in. Was guitar had guitar kicked in, or when did guitar become a part of your soul?
Well, when I was 9 years old
Oh,
in Mexico, I asked my parents for a bicycle for Christmas and they gave me a guitar. It
oh,
pissed me off. So I hung the thing on the wall. And about 6 months after that, my friend Kurt Bundy, who's living in the apartment downstairs,
oh,
said, "Hey, he came upstairs and said, you have a guitar?" I said, yeah, I guess so. They said, "Well, I'm taking guitar lessons, and if I show you some chords, I would be fun to have somebody to play with." So I pulled the thing off the wall, tuned it up, and realized I think I like this a lot. And iterations of the guitar, I mean, pedal steel is my favorite instrument. When I was in Boston, I was playing with the Holy Modal Rounders.
right.
I was playing bass for Tim Buckley. It just, the guitar became, the sun of my solar system, for sure.
Well, absolutely, and it became the sound and the feel to so many of us because you played it. So thank you for that. I will say at 19, you enrolled at the place that I graduated in 1983, Boston University, School of Public Communications.
SPC, right?
SPC, and I love that because I didn't know that was a commonality between us. But I was a broadcast journalism major, and you studied journalism there. I love that the similarity there. That's really neat. And you continue to perform with local bands in Boston. You had your freshman roommate was James Montgomery, which had to be an interesting kind of early meetup.
What a wonderful human being.
Oh, I bet. And Jack's Drum Shop was part of your guitar technician, amplifier repairman type of world. I love that. Ultimate Spinach kicked in the late 60s, Jeff. You were on their third album for that. You went through that. You got Skunk. We won't go through that. Why? But because I love the fact that it's Jeff Skunk Baxter, and that's the way we all say it. Because we haven't talked about that. But the next thing, how did the breakup of Ultimate Spinach, you relocated out there where you are right now, and you began a session guitar type of life, which became one of your major parts of your career. How did that kick in? And then at 24, the founding member of one of my favorite bands of all time. To this day, I'll play their music endlessly, and I've always known you've been part of Steely Dan. But how did that whole move to LA and things kick into Steely Dan?
Well, actually, after I left, when the Ultimate Spinach kind of broke up,
right,
there was a lot of work in the Boston area. I was doing a ton of session work and commuting to New York, taking the train or taking the Eastern Airlines, I guess it was.
Right.
So I was working as a studio musician in both cities. I was repairing guitars. Dave Schechter and I had a guitar repair shop. We were building custom guitars for people, as well as repairing and customizing. I was doing a lot of the electronics.
Right.
Dave was doing a lot of the woodwork. Incredible craftsman. And was working a lot in a studio called Intermedia Sound.
Yeah.
And I mean, I wasn't the house guitar player. That would be disingenuous. But I spent so much time there that I ended up doing a lot of sessions for other people. A band would come in and said, "We need a guitar part." Have Skunk come in and do it. And there was a band called the Bead Game, which was a fabulous band. John Sheldon, I loved his guitar playing. And the drummer in the band was a gentleman named Jimmy Hodder. Okay. So their producer was a guy named Gary Katz.
Right.
And Gary was producing the band. And I guess I'm trying to remember what it was. It was maybe a Jonathan Edwards session or something I was doing.
Oh.
And Gary stuck his head in. And afterwards he said, listen, I'm doing a project in New York with a young woman named Linda Hoover. And we have these songwriters that are writing much of the material. Could you come down to New York and work on the record? I said, sure, that's what I do. And so I went down there and worked with Linda. And the two songwriters were Walter Becker and Donald Fagen. And after we had, I'm trying to remember how many tunes we did, 4 or 5 at least. And afterwards, they said, we've never really heard anybody play guitar like this on our material. And I said, well, I'm extremely impressed with this material. I mean, I've never really heard anything like this as well. And so we made a sort of a deal that the first people who got their nose under the tent, so to speak, would call everybody else and we'd form a band. So Walter and Donald came out to Los Angeles with Gary and got a publishing deal at ABC Records. And so the idea was, okay, let's form a band. So they said, well, you know any drummers? I said, yeah, Jimmy Hodder from B Game.
There you
and
go.
Gary was familiar with him as well. Killer drummer, killer singer. Do you know any lead singers? Yeah, David Palmer. You know, had been playing about with another fabulous guitar player named Ricky Phelps. And so we brought them in, and they knew Denny Diaz, tremendous guitar player. And so that was the beginning of the bands. So I was moving to Los Angeles anyway. I took a gig as a part of the house band at the Palomino Club, playing country music, steel
Wow.
player and
Wow.
guitar player,
Oh,
and and doing a lot of session work in LA. And we decided that we were going to try to form a band. We had all the people and everybody had moved out to LA. So we started rehearsing in the office of the president of ABC Records,
oh,
Jay Lasker.
right.
And we would rehearse there at night, and then we'd clean up our stuff and, get it out. Jay, for a month, didn't know what was happening. And one day, I guess we just had a little too much, to drink, and we didn't get it cleaned up in time. And Jay Lasker walks in and goes, "What the hell is this?" And Gary said, "Well, there's this band that's connected with the songwriter." And Jay, being a old school record guy, sat back in his chair, lit up a cigar, said, "Okay, let me hear it."
Oh,
and we played a couple of tunes and said, "Okay, I'll sign it."
oh,
Him and Howard Stark.
oh my
I was the
God.
vice president. And that started Steve Barry, who was the head of A&R,
Right.
was also very instrumental in getting the band signed. And then, break, there were very special people in my life, like Henry Goldrick from Manny's, who looked out for me. And when I got the opportunity to work with the Department of Defense, a lot of people said that's really dumb and stupid. And I walked into Manny's and I said, "Hey, Henry, how you doing?" He said, "Oh, I'm doing okay." And he said, "You got anything new?" And he said, "God damn it, Baxter, you get everything before anybody else." And he picks a guitar up from the thing. "Take this guitar, get out of my store." But that was Henry, gruff but lovable. So he said,
Oh,
this was on a Saturday, and store was packed, and I said, "I got to talk to you." He said, "Let's go upstairs." We went upstairs, sat in the storeroom, said, "What do you got?" And I explained to him what I wanted to do and that I had this opportunity. And he said, "Listen, I've known you for many years. I know a lot about you, and I know the kind of person you are. How do you feel about this?" I said, "Because of my dad, who was also in the military,
right.
I think this would be a tremendous opportunity to serve my country." And he said, "You go do that.
Oh,
Tell those other people to go pound sand.
right.
Go do this. You need to do this."
Oh,
So, luckily, guys like Henry, and then E. Wurlitzer, Tim Giacrimo, who was the Henry Goldrick of E. Wurlitzer. I was repairing guitars for them, and one day I delivered some guitars, and I saw this beautiful Emmons double neck pedal steel sitting in the middle of the floor, and I just sat there and stared. I was playing a Fender 8-string at the time, and Tim walked over, and without saying anything, he said, "I'll take 10% out of every guitar that you repair for me. Take it. It's yours."
oh my God.
I mean, he just knew. And that gave me the opportunity to have a wonderful instrument to really begin to shed for pedal steel.
Right.
So the reason I say that is because Howard Stark and Jay Lasker from ABC Records,
Right.
when Steely Dan decided not to tour anymore, and I was already out with the Doobie Brothers playing,
Yes.
and they asked me if I would join the band, I walked into Jay's office and said, "Jay, I have this incredible opportunity to join the Doobie Brothers." And I said, "I know I'm under contract. They're under contract to Warner Brothers. I'm really not sure what to do." And he opened his drawer, pulled out the contract, said, "You never lied to me. You were always, you did what you you did for us very well, and best of luck, my friend.
Oh,
and
wow.
I thought, again, those are the kind of people in your life that
yes,
really make a huge difference. They're there at the right time, the right place. And this book that I'm writing is going to have a number of stories about those very special people.
right.
The old Mexican radio TV repairman that taught me enough about electronics to get me started repairing amplifiers and stuff. Just these, and my dad and my mom. I mean, you know, she to give me piano lessons at age 5 and to teach me to read.
Oh,
I remember I was reading Huckleberry Finn with my mom, and my dad walks in the room. He says, "Oh, so you can read now, huh?" And of course, I'm a little snot. I said, "Yeah." So he walks into the library, pulls out a copy of The Gathering Storm by Winston Churchill, drops it in my lap, and says, "Read that."
oh,
It took me 2 years to get through it. And of course, Winston Churchill is one of my heroes.
right.
But again, people who were there for you, Dan Armstrong,
Yeah.
who saw that there were no guitars for repair coming out of Jimmy's music shop. And this was a time back in the 60s. You remember what minimum wage was? It was $1.25 an hour.
Right.
Right. So Danny came up and said, "I'll pay you $5 an hour. Come work for me."
Oh,
And of course, being at Dan Armstrong's, where every day, every great guitar player, I mean, just sitting in the front room, Eddie Deal, Sam Brown, Sal Salvador. I mean, oh my God.
oh God.
This is like going to the College of Music alone and getting to play with these guys.
Oh,
And Danny was a fearsome guitar player. So, but him being there for me, just, it's hard to describe I guess it's luck, but the incredible people that have been in my life.
oh yes, that sounds like.
So that's how Steely Dan came about, ended up, and then I went over to Warner Brothers, and then the same thing happened when I left the Doobie Brothers.
right.
Mo Austin, the president of Warner Brothers Records, I said, you know, I think I'm going to leave the band. There are a couple of us that, you know, are going to go do our own thing. I've got all these opportunities to produce records. And I said, what do I do? Same thing.
Oh my God.
You never lied to me. You did very well for our company, and we'll always be friends, and good luck.
Oh my God. That's spectacular. I love that.
I mean, all that stuff could have gone so south.
Right. It just merged. Yeah, it synced. That's
Good
fabulous.
people. Good people.
I love that. You were in your first album as a full member of the Doobies, and I know Tom Johnston got sick, and you suggested a guy who is on your new solo record and is one of the great singers of all time, Michael McDonald. How did you get Michael in with the Doobies?
Well, I had met Michael because Michael was touring with Steely Dan,
right,
playing keyboards and singing background.
Right.
And so we become friends. And I think it's just at the university, Louisiana State University, we were doing the show. We're going to do a show,
right,
huge auditorium, like thousands of people. And Tommy got very sick and couldn't make it on stage.
Right.
So I walked out on stage and said, "Hey, here's the deal. You can all have your money back, or you can wait 10 days and come back." And nobody asked for their money back. So I thought, okay, let me see here. I called Michael. I said, there's a ticket waiting for you. You need to come down and play with the Doobie Brothers for a while. And so he said, sure.
One thing you started doing too, Jeff, is TV and film, composing music. I love the appeared in What's Happening in Doobie.
Well, yeah. Well, that was
as a member of the Doobie Brothers before
Right.
you started composing. What was that?
That was actually a really great experience. Obviously, Warner Brothers had their own agenda, so the whole plot of the two-part series on What's Happening was recording music and bootlegging it. They had Warner's had their thing. But one of the things I found really interesting was the director of the show. When we did the music concert sequence, when I saw it afterwards, I went, this is incredible.
Wow.
This guy is awesome. And it was just when bands were beginning to use video as a medium as a part of their presentation.
Right.
And I asked him if he could produce a video for the Doobies. And he went to NBC and they said, absolutely not. You're on a contract to us.
Oh.
Typical. It's too bad because I can only imagine how advanced and how exciting that would have been.
Yes.
You want to try that? Yeah, you want to do another one? Echoes of Love?
You kids will have to leave. We're getting ready for a big concert.
But I'm here for the interview.
We're rehearsing right now.
No, you listen. We're your fans, and without your fans, you wouldn't be here rehearsing.
You guys, listen, that's fine and well, but usually we...
And don't talk when I'm in the middle of a sentence.
Okay. Excuse me, but who is this kid?
My sister. Dee, will you come on and sit down?
I know what I'm doing.
Whatever you want to know, just ask.
I would like to know if you'll give my brother an interview for the high school paper.
Sure, no problem.
Hey, all right!
But first, I want to know if you'll sing another song.
How about Little Darling? Good. Yeah, let's dedicate this song to our little darling.
Thanks. But this time, a little more bass.
Little darling, I love you. Little darling,
that enough bass for you there, huh?
My name's, wow, the Doobie Brothers.
Your name's Roger. He's my brother. I'm Dee. That's Rerun, and that's Dwayne.
Hey, Dwayne.
Hey.
They're not bright, but at least they're housebroken.
Hey, Rerun. I remember you from Miss Phillips' class.
Hey, that's right.
Hey, nice to see you came back for the concert.
Came back. I'm still here.
Can we get on with the interview?
All right. Let me get you guys' names down, okay?
Oh, I'm Keith. This is Michael, Jeffrey, Tyran, Patrick down at the end, Bobby, and this is John.
Got it.
The Doobie Brothers. What are you, a half-brother?
No, we're not really related. We just sort of depend on each other, you know, a lot like you do with your brother Raj.
You're in big trouble.
Anyway, you guys are our favorite rock group.
Hey, thanks, man.
Speak for yourself, Raj. Nothing personal. You're just a little before my time.
Oh, what's your favorite group?
The Jackson 4.
Wait a minute. That's the Jackson 5.
No, the Jackson 4. I'm not too crazy about one.
Well, no matter. After tonight, I'm sure that we'll be one of your favorite rock groups.
I don't want to go to your concert. Besides, I don't have a ticket.
Oh,
we can get you in.
Don't worry about it. You can come with me. You don't need a ticket. You can be my guest.
You know, you guys might catch on. Now we can go together.
Lovely.
Hey guys, I really love your new album, Living on the Fault Line.
So do I. Yeah. Well, what's your biggest problem? I mean, what gets you the craziest?
When engine goes off.
Say it's definitely bootlegging.
Yeah.
Bootlegging?
Yeah, that's bootlegging.
What's that?
That's where somebody illegally records one of our concerts, you know, and sells it to the public.
Yeah, what happens is, see, the record company doesn't make any money, we don't make any money, and the public gets a pretty bad recording.
Well, how do they get away with it?
Well, the bootlegger gets some gullible, unsuspecting, stupid kid, gives him tickets and sets him up with a tape recorder to sneak in.
Well, what's wrong with that?
It's the law, for one thing, Rerun. And for another, if we catch anybody doing it, he's going to go to jail for a long time. Right. Amen.
Well, can you guys just yell at him?
Yeah, I started to meet more and more people in TV and movies and was being asked to write. I remember I even composed a movie soundtrack with Lalo Schifrin.
Wow.
1984, I think the name of the movie was. Crazy movie.
Right.
But the idea of having already been a studio musician on a number of movie soundtracks, meeting other composers and then beginning to write and beginning to compose for different folks, it seemed to me a logical progression.
Sure. Yeah, I think that makes complete sense. And along with that, as things that happened early in your career, your session guitarist group, I mean, the things that you did, Jeff, over your career, and we could go with a list that is endless. I mean, you're talking Glenn Campbell, Dolly Parton, Ringo Starr, Livingston Taylor, Rod Stewart, Judy Collins, Carly Simon. What were some of the memorable moments of a lot of those sessions that you had that you could maybe throw out in a nutshell of what were some of the real amazing moments that you remember with all those, because they had to be endless with all these people? Barbara Streisand, Tom Rush, Donna Summer. Friend asked me, what about Carl Wilson? That had to be wild with him too. So,
oh my God. The first time I ever heard God Only Knows, I thought, this person's voice it's coming from some very special place.
Wow.
And then later on, I mean, I kind of stored that in my mind. Later on, Jerry Schilling, who was very close to Elvis Presley,
right,
became Brian's Carl's manager, and came to me and said, would you produce an album for Carl? And he went, "Are you kidding me?" In a New York second, in a heartbeat.
Right.
And we went into the studio, and working with Carl, it was like a dream come true. This guy voice was just, I can't describe. Angelic is the wrong word. Ethereal, I guess, might be the right word.
Wow.
And so we did the Youngblood record together, and that was a tremendous good time. Great players, had all the cats on it, you know, all my first call buddies. And I was really proud of that record.
Oh, that's spectacular.
And working with Dolly Parton, I mean, she's an angel.
Yeah, 3 records with her, right? Wow.
Tom Rush.
Oh, yeah.
That song that we did together, and of course I'm getting old. I'm trying to remember the title of it. I'll think of it in a second.
Right.
No Regrets.
Yes. Oh.
We were playing at the Troubadour, and I just broken up with my girlfriend. And Tom in the dressing room said, "Hey, I can tell you're not in the greatest place. Do you want us to not do No Regrets tonight?" And I thought, now that's a friend.
Right.
Who would take one of the premier songs out of his set just so I wouldn't feel bad.
Oh,
and I said, no, we're going to do this. We're going to do the crap out of this.
Oh,
but just, that memorable experiences. Just memorable experiences with memorable people.
I bet Ringo Starr for a couple of records. That had to be fun too.
He's a wonderful human being, is. And funny enough, we were up at the Village Recorders doing an album. We were together. We were playing pedal steel, and Mark Hudson was producing. And I don't know how this happened, but Ringo said, you'll probably, I got a feeling that you're going to probably get interrupted, and you're going to have to go do something,
right,
with the government. And I went, don't worry about it. Halfway through the session, 2 guys in black suits come into the studio and said, we got to go. We got to go. My pager went off, and he said, Ringo said, it's probably somebody from the government. Oh. And he looked at it, and just at that time, those guys walked in the door. And to his credit, he said, I understand. We'll finish the track when you get back.
Oh, my God.
That was pretty funny.
Oh, that is.
What a sweetheart. What a sweetheart.
Oh, it sounds it. And those experiences, Jeff, seems to be something that, again, started very early in your career. So stepping in as a session musician and being a part of a band, it sounds like session was really your go-to.
Well, it's hard to say.
Right.
Do you like lobster or do you like filet mignon? There's a time and a place for everything.
For everything, right.
I guess because my dad had really instilled a strong work ethic in me. And of course, you know what boarding schools are like.
Right.
Same thing, that hardcore English classic education, work ethic. Martin Luther, Max Weber, the Protestant ethic, spirit of capitalism,
right?
All that stuff. I think that being a studio musician, to me, was like being Top Gun. The idea that was a great way to prove yourself, and also to be to show yourself that you can excel at your craft.
Sure.
And also, it was very influential on a lot of levels. Number one, there were a lot of people that were doing a lot of crazy stuff at the time. And certainly I did my share of partying.
Right.
But there was something to me in the back of my mind, a little voice said, Now, if you want to keep your position as first call, if you screw up, That's it.
Right.
You lose. You only get one chance.
Right.
So it kind of kept me not on the straight and narrow, but on the off the path of the total lunacy.
Right.
And it also influenced the way that I approach music.
Sure.
When I got Michael into the Doobie Brothers, I thought, I got an idea. So I asked Ted Templeman, the producer, I said, what do you think if I take this band and book them as a rhythm section for Hoyt Axton and Carly Simon and Leo Sayer? And he said, that's a great idea.
Wow.
So I started booking the band.
Oh.
And this, the Doobies were a rocking, rollicking rock and roll band.
Yeah.
But now you show up, downbeats at 9, and if you're late, you're fired.
Right.
And if you screw up, you're fired. So the band, to their absolute credit, did a brilliant work with Hoyt Axton and Leo Sayer and Carly.
Oh.
And so I remember when we were doing the Living on the Fault Line album, which I think actually is probably the best Doobie Brothers album ever.
Yeah.
The amount of exploration,
yeah,
and the depth of the musicianship on that record. I remember Keith Knutson, we were listening back to one of the tracks, and he went, I dropped a snare drum beat in bar 51. And I went, bingo. Bingo. Now everybody's in that frame of mind. And I believe that laid the groundwork for the Minute by Minute album.
Oh, spectacular.
And again, this is not to say at all that the Tom Johnson era was in any way, shape, or form any less formidable.
Yeah.
But what it did show is that the depth of these musicians went so far down.
Yeah.
What these people could do.
Totally.
I mean, Tyrone Porter's got to be the most underrated bass player on the planet.
Wow.
It's just, and it was so satisfying.
Oh.
To have the producers when we went in as a section and go, that's it, that's a wrap, guys. I got another project I'll call you.
Right.
Not as the Doobie Brothers, as a rhythm section.
Sure.
When Rick Perry said, after we did the Leo Sayer stuff, said, these guys are awesome.
Oh.
I'm going to book, I like having a section. Because
Yeah.
it was like a wrecking crew.
Sure.
It was like,
Oh, spectacular.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
I loved hearing that. That is just wonderful. You hit briefly on before, and we don't have to go all the way down it, but again, defense consulting career you have that, and it kicked in the mid 80s because of, again, your interest between the hardware and software of music, and then how it was kind of going into the military type of world, or already was. What does that feel like now? How has that career been for you, in addition to this amazing music run?
Well, again, my father brought me up to love my country. And actually growing up in Mexico gives one an interesting perspective on their home country.
Right.
But that's how my dad brought me up. He was 5 years active, 20 years reserve, U.S. Army. Left the reserve as a lieutenant colonel.
Wow.
And so for me, this was an opportunity to serve.
Wow.
I showed up for my draft physical. They wouldn't take me.
Right.
That's a really interesting story that'll be in my book.
Oh, great.
But this is an opportunity to serve, and I love it. I love being able to help protect my children. I would rather not see my grandchildren working in a Chinese coal mine. So this gives me a say, if you want, in the security of my friends, my countrymen, my family.
Sure.
And it's so satisfying. I mean, the people I get to work with.
Oh,
When I was, I still am at Lawrence Livermore. When I first started out at Lawrence Livermore, the nuclear weapons laboratory,
right.
we were doing high energy diode pump solid state laser work. My boss was Dr. Edward Teller, the inventor of the hydrogen bomb.
Yeah.
So Fast Eddie, who also, by the way, was a concert pianist, most physicists I've ever worked with are musicians because they understand the relationship between frequency, vibration, music, and physics. To me, it was a natural.
Yeah.
And I get to play with big toys, do some very cool stuff.
You do. And you also, you've been working raising money for the Marine Corps Scholarship Fund. That's
the first gig we did at the Birchmere with the birthday party that a couple of my buddies threw for me. We decided, what the heck? Let's do that. And my dad at J. Warner Thompson, his account was the U.S. Marine Corps for 25 years.
Oh, my God.
A few good men, the few, the proud.
Right.
All of that stuff he came up with.
Oh, he did.
That was his account.
Oh, my God.
And then when there's this thing called the Military Order of the Carabao, which I'm El Guitarista de los Carabao. It's one of the oldest military organizations in the United States, in the country. When the Grand Bombardero of the Military Order of the Carabao is Al Gray, former commandant of the U.S. Marine Corps.
Right.
I started taking my dad, we call it the Wallow, and he walks across the room and walks up to Al Gray and says, "How you doing, Al?" And Al says, "Hey, Roy, how are you?" I'm going, all right. Everything just keeps coming together.
Yes.
Orbiting each other in concentric and tangential circles.
Oh.
So I feel right at home. I'm so lucky to work with some of the most amazing people on the planet.
Oh, I bet, Jeff. That's fabulous. And what an amazing side side kind of thing you did with music. This sounds like both of them brought you joy in your heart and soul and in different ways.
Very fulfilling.
I bet.
Very fulfilling.
I bet. Of all,
and it made my dad proud too.
Oh, I bet it.
I mean,
did.
not that he. If it wasn't for him, I would have never heard Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie and Howard Roberts, who became my mentor for years, because my dad's record collection was so eclectic.
Yeah.
So music was a huge. I mean, I was brought up on Louis Armstrong, King Oliver, Pete Fountain, because he loved Dixieland, and so again, there's this fusion of music and the military.
Yeah, completely. I had a Living on Music Nation member, Kathy Nugent, and I said, "You guys want to ask me to ask Jeff something?" She had a wonderful question. She said, "Of all his varied and interesting work, and we've talked about it a lot here, which do you hope to be most recognized for?"
Well, that's an interesting question, Kathy. I appreciate it. I think, and this, I don't mean to sound trite, but I probably would like to be recognized for when I got the call, I did the gig. Whatever they asked me to do, whatever it was, I think I was able to accomplish it. And to me, having grown up with that work ethic from my dad, that I can walk away from whatever I did, whether it was being in a band or doing a recording session or building a guitar or customizing a guitar for somebody. At the end of it, they say, "Awesome, thank you."
Oh,
that's what I needed. In the same way as, like I said, when in the military, I don't have a lot of medals. That's not why I do it.
No.
But when you get a call and say, I want you to meet Colonel Robotham in a room 85D. So you go down there and there's 2 or 3 people there, and they say, that work you did on the intercept program for the Standard Missile, great work, man. Thank you very much.
Oh, man.
Nobody will ever hear it. Nobody will ever see it. But to me, that's the essence of doing a great job. It seems maybe simple, but that's what I'd like to be known for.
Oh, I love that, Jeff, because we feel the presence of you for music for me has been monumental for my entire life. I've always known what you've done, who you are, and to have this whole other part of you, which I knew about, but to hear about and that it brings a big kind of heart and soul into you too. That is fabulous. You've talked about the book.
Have I made you happy?
Yes.
Well,
Totally.
Listen, one of the reasons also that I do this is to what it does for the human spirit.
Right.
I mean, the Taliban was cutting the hands off of musicians.
Right.
Because why? Because they're scared to death of the fact that musicians have the key to people's hearts.
Right.
And do you know who Cooch is? Danny Korchmar?
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Cooch and I have been friends since the 60s.
Oh.
So he had asked me, he'd come to me. He said, remember that guitar you fixed for me in 1960, 68, 69? I said, yeah, it was a Telecaster. I said, well, I took it to Fender and they screwed it up. Can you put it back the way it was? I said, everything that I do is guaranteed for life.
Oh.
So bring it over to the house.
Right.
And then we were at the NAMM show. And he said, tell me what I can do. Can I help you in any way? I said, understand something. You don't need to pick up a rifle. You don't need to, learn to fly a jet plane. You don't need to do that. Every note that you play makes you a freedom fighter. Oh. That's why the Taliban is frightened of you.
Oh, my God.
And so Cooch, at the Roland exhibit, his band is playing. They're playing like 3 or 4 songs. And at the end of it, when everybody's walking off the stage, he goes back up to the microphone and says, I'm going to tell you all something. And goes into a 15-minute presentation about why every musician is a freedom fighter.
Oh, my God.
And I'm standing there going, Cooch, go, baby.
Go.
Oh, man, that was awesome.
You have a book coming out. Is this your first memoir?
Yeah.
Fabulous. When does that due out? And in a nutshell, what are we going to get from it?
Well, I'm hoping that I'll be finished by the middle of next year.
Okay.
And it's a narrative more like a series of vignettes, kind of what we did here.
Cool.
Let me tell you about Tim Giacrimo.
Right.
Let me tell you about Dan Armstrong.
Nice.
And then they are anchors that allow me to go and talk about a number of different things, both musically.
Perfect.
And to the extent that I'm allowed to tell certain stories, they will also be narratives about some of my crazier adventures.
Oh, fantastic.
Philippines, Cambodia, Nicaragua, Thailand.
Oh, it's got to be an amazing ride. And it will be for us and all the people that love what you've done musically and also what you've done from the defense part of your world and that world that really sounds wonderful too. Jeff, you've been tremendous for all of us. And in my growth of music and the fact that I became a musician too later in my life, but a music journalist for so long, your music has been part of my soul since I was a young man, and thank you for that. You should be tremendously proud of what you've given us.
Well, thank you. And then you can tell Kathy that's where it gets good. If somebody cares and somebody appreciates what you do, if you can make their life a little bit better on any level, that's what I like to be known for. So thank you very much for saying that. It means a lot.
Oh, it's true. And that's why not just talking to you as a journalist here, but just as a fan and a musician and a lover of the music that you've given us means the world. I hope to be, if I can, at the Birchmere on the 13th, because I'd love to see what you're doing with that, because that would be a thrill beyond belief to be able to see you in person again. But I want to congratulate you for this solo record you did, about the book coming up, and about this tremendous career you've had. And thank you for being on Living on Music, man.
Well, again, you're too kind. But when you come to Birchmere, if you can make it, definitely come up to say hi.
I'd love to.
This band is frightening. Mark Damian, the drummer, and we discovered that he's also a great lead singer.
Nice.
Again, first call guy. Hank Horton, the bass player, is first called in Detroit and Chicago. And oh, by the way, happens to be the bass player for the Detroit Symphony.
Nice.
Keyboard player, James Raymond, is kind of family because he's David Crosby's son.
Right.
And Dana and I were friends.
Yeah, I've seen him play with him. Yeah.
So you put these guys together. I don't have to do anything. I could just sit there and listen.
Yes, but
one day out of nowhere, Hank took a bass solo, and not only took an amazing bass solo, but then did a rendition of Blackbird singing and playing bass. I mean, you just never know where this is going.
Oh.
Which I love, because I love the fact that these musicians are so good that, yes, we have things that we rehearse,
right,
but there's also plenty of space to just see where it goes. I remember doing a session with Oscar Peterson.
Wow.
I work at Roland. I've been at Roland for 50 years.
Right.
Given Oscar Peterson a Jupiter 8 synthesizer. And so he's playing away, and I think we were doing Sweet Georgia Brown, at like Mach 3. I'm playing away, and he's loving this thing. And after a while, we're about 10 minutes into it, the engineer, you can see him in the window going. And so Oscar Peterson looks up, and then finally the guy goes, oh. And Oscar Peterson looks at him. So we're going on for about 20 minutes. And the engineer, we stopped, and the engineer pushes the button and says, hey, I was trying to tell you guys, we ran out of tape. And Oscar Peterson said, I know, man. Oh. I just wanted to see where it was going.
Oh.
That, to me, is the essence of why I love playing with these guys.
Oh, wow. Well, I can't wait. And I hope that I get to see you at the Birchmere, Jeff Skunk Baxter. Thanks so much again for everything you've done for us musically, and for everything you've done for us on your other part of your world. And I hope to hook up with you at the Birchmere in a week or two.
Thank you for your hospitality. Thank Kathy for the question, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
I sure will. Thanks, man.
Take good care.
You too.
Wow.
I mean, I've felt like this in many times after doing shows with such amazing people, and boy, is this no exception whatsoever. Jeff Skunk Baxter, man, you're an integral part of our hearts and souls in music, and always will be for so many, eternally, with what you did for Steely Dan, Doobies, all those musicians, all of the stuff that you've done for the Defense Department and continue to, and all of the stuff that you do, that you've done otherwise. I mean, and that What's Happening episode was so fun to see. But so many wonderful meaningful, integral parts of the musical world you were a part of. Jeff Skunk Baxter, you made my day, week, month, and year talking to you. And again, I hope I get to see you at the Birchmere at your show coming up on Monday the 13th. Real quick, and let's again, Jeff Skunk Baxter, keep in close touch. Everybody, if you want to become a Living on Music member, go to Facebook, Living on Music with Steve Houck. If you're already a member, thank you. YouTube is also Living on Music with Steve Houck on YouTube. Subscribe to that if you would, because it is a huge deal to increase subscribers and then get some perks through YouTube and potential more some advertising options. Also, if you're a podcaster, you can go to the Spreaker base right here, and you'll see the URL. But you can also go to any podcast that you're a fan of and use, and just dial in Living on Music with Steve Houck, and you'll find all the episodes that have been on. There are a few dozen now. I started podcast posting not long ago, so about a year or more, and there's some amazing things on there too, including this with Jeff Skunk Baxter. Obviously, Living on Music is a visual show, at its core, but it also goes over pretty darn well with audio. So thanks so much. And if you want to be a part of the Living on Music legacy, again, the show is pro bono and has been from the beginning. And I just want to try to up the ante a little bit on expenses, covering stuff for the show and my editor, Todd Jones. And also just would like to, again, feel that the show is going forward. And so if you'd like to contribute, go to Venmo, Living on Music LLC, at Living on Music LLC. Once again, Jeff Skunk Baxter, you made my day. And again, beyond that, thanks so much. And everybody, don't forget to keep living on music.